College football roundup. Why does Nick Saban keep saying this stuff? What is happening? Nick Saban went on Joel Klatt's podcast and said this: all we do is take the teams that win the most games at the end of the year, put them into the playoffs. But do you really get the best teams? When they told me that we would be favored against 3 out of the 4 teams that got in the playoff, I'm like, why aren't we in the playoffs? Ted, he's the best coach of all time. You have to give him the respect that he deserves. But why does he keep bringing this up? I don't understand it, especially when the playoffs expanding a season from now. Like, why does he keep saying what is the motive here? Because ultimately, I don't think Nick Saban does anything by accident. What is he trying to get accomplished other than people saying, Nick, you realized you were favored in the 2 games you lost a season ago. Why do you keep bringing betting lines and power rankings, all this stuff up? It clearly isn't the end-all be-all.
I feel like there is a spectrum of people in college football when it comes to the playoff. There are people that think we need to get the 4 best teams into the playoff. Like the extreme example is we need the 4 best teams. It really doesn't matter what their records are. We need the 4 best teams with the 4 most talented, the 4 most well coached, the 4 healthiest. Like, we need the 4 best teams. On the other side, we need the 4 most deserving teams. We need the teams that won their conference, that went undefeated. It really doesn't matter nearly as much who they played or how good they are, how talented they are. They earned the right to go play for a championship. And I think a lot of people kind of fit, somewhere in there. Like, yeah, we want the best, but you have to have some type of, you had to put together a season and earn your way in. And I feel like Saban is kind of pitching if our goal is to get the 4 best teams in the playoff, then we should have been in. We're one of the 4 best teams. If your goal is to get the 4 most deserving teams, then they need to start saying that instead of saying the 4 best teams. That's kind of what I gather from it.
I find it funny because he mentions, betting lines, right? When he's mentioning, hey, we would have been favored. He's mentioning betting lines. He's brought up power ratings, all this stuff. And he keeps bringing up, and you and I both know, he's telling his football team to ignore all of that stuff. Oh, you're a double-digit favorite? That doesn't matter. Like, this team can beat. He's doing that. So on one hand, he's telling his players, hey, ignore all of that stuff. And then he's going on these podcasts or doing these interviews saying, no, we got to take that stuff into account. Which one is it, man? Does it matter or does it not?
That's right.
Because that's how coaches are when they're addressing their team. I got to imagine some of the kids from Bama are seeing this going, Coach always tells us to not look at that stuff.
You can't cherry pick whenever and use the stuff you want to use when you want to use it.
Right.
If you're going to use it, you got to use it no matter what it says about you. Right. And coaches just don't do that.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would I have picked Alabama to beat TCU? There's no doubt. There's absolutely no doubt. But the thing about college football, it's not the NFL. There is not some even playing field, right? You are judged by your circumstances, right? If you're in the SEC, part of being in that league is you're going to be judged differently, right? Is a 10-2 record in the SEC like Bama had with the losses against Tennessee and LSU? Do I think a 10-2 Bama is better than a team that goes 9-3 in the Pac-12? Yes. I mean, clearly, or even a team that, I'm going to say it the other way, like an 11-1 team in the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm going to pick Bama to beat that team, but your circumstances are dictated by where you are and how you are judged with where you are in college football. That's just how this thing works. And I just don't understand why Nick Saban keeps bringing it up. We only got one more year of this. Who cares at this point? Like, I don't get it. I don't get what the
whole
goal
interview?
Is. Yeah. I mean,
because that was kind of a small point. Like, the bigger context of the question was kind of
like, what's wrong with the selection process?
Well, yeah, and like trying, like, if you're looking for a kind of a level playing field and to have, some parity in college football, it's like it's totally set up wrong. It was like, I would be all about, like, changing up the way everything is broken up and getting to whether it's 4, divisions across the country that are equal. And he's like, I don't want to, talk down about some of the non-Power 5 schools and stuff like that, but like, you got to be honest about it. The resources that we have at Alabama are not what the rest of college football has. He's like, and I'm right now where I'm at, I'm paid to dominate, right? That's what the fans at Alabama want. They want domination. So that's what we're doing. But like, there's a better way to get some, some parity across the sport. But here's the thing. The top schools are never going to give up their grip of where they are at the top. I mean, it's just not going to happen. No. Even with the expanded playoff is going to bring more money and everything for everyone. But to suggest that it's going to level the playing field somewhat is not going to be the case.
Yeah, and maybe that's what Saban, because he said this multiple times now. Maybe that's what he's trying to get across. Basically, hey, when we expand to 12, we should be in every year. Mm-hmm. We're going to be one of the 12 best teams every single season. And maybe that's why he wants people to look at the selection process for a 12-team playoff a little differently, maybe than they look for a 4. Maybe he's just trying to secure Bama's spot every single year by saying, hey, we need to consider odds makers and what they think and power ratings and all this. Like, we need to consider that, because if they start looking at it that way, and even if you factor the record in, Bama will be in every single season.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the goal, right? Well, but yeah. I think Bama would be in damn near every single season without Nick Saban coming out and saying this stuff. So
well, and again, like, I think his overall message was actually good. Like, he was saying that, like, for example, the NFL, that they want parity. They want everyone to have, I think he said it, they want everyone 8-8 going into the 17th game of the season, right?
Which is not true.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it kind of, like, you want every fan base in the sport to be invested all, like, deeper and deeper into the season. And I think that's the good thing about the 12-team playoff is you're engaging such a larger group of fans that feel like, whether there's an actual reality that they have a chance or not, like, you're in the dance and you have an opportunity to go win a championship. So, it's kind of all built around that. But yeah, college football, we just have to embrace that it's screwy as hell, and it's always going to be screwy as hell. It's just, when they set it up as strangely as they did from the very beginning. I mean, it wasn't very long ago where you didn't even have a national championship game. Like, you had, like, the biggest sport in the country was voted on for a national championship. That's the dumbest shit ever. And it was like that way for 100 years. It's incredible. They used to pick the national champion before they even played bowl games. How stupid is that? I mean, so, like, whenever you start with that screwed up of a system and do it for 100 years that way, it's hard to undo any of that. It's always going to be weird.
Yeah. I just think the most accomplished coach in the history of the sport, who's got the most talented roster in the history of sport, saying all this stuff. I'm just like, really? I mean, uh, Nick Saban is going to be the voice for parity in college football as he stockpiles 5-star after 5-star after 5-star there in Tuscaloosa. I don't know, man. I get he's Nick Saban. He can say what he wants, but
Is that the first year they missed the playoff?
I'd have to, yes.
Because I'm sitting here
Maybe
thinking,
that's
like,
why he's pissed.
I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. It's like, why is he so hung up on last year? You know, like he's the like the epitome of moving on. Like, remember when they won a championship and he's pissed that he lost time recruiting, you know? So it's weird that he's so hung up on last year. It's okay, Nick.
It's all right. Everything's going to be all right, Nick. All right. Next thing we're going to hit. We ever going to get this EA Sports College Football video game? EA getting sued. And I want to make something very clear. I think the game's going to get made. I think it's going to get distributed. I think we're going to be very happy, right? We're going to be able to play it. But when this got announced, we said, hey, this could be complicated from an NIL standpoint, right? You got to work with all these individuals, get them to sign up, get them to agree to the amount, and then you get this whole Brandr Group lawsuit. Now, do you see this?
Yeah.
So just to explain it real quickly, the Brandr Group they have some group licensing deals with some significant schools in college athletics. They've got deals with Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and several others. And when it comes to the development of the video game, the Brandr Group was hoping to get a group licensing deal with EA to do the video game. But EA ended up going with a company called One Team Partners for it. So now, and One Team Partners and EA have been working with trying to, we talked about, hey, kids can opt in individually, right? Well, the Brandr Group looks at it and goes, hey, you're ignoring us. You're trying to work directly with these players of these schools that we have contracts with when it comes to group licensing. That ain't it. We're suing you. And so I don't know what's going to come of this, but this thing continues to get more complicated and more complicated.
We don't deserve the game, in my opinion. Because you got every tick and leech out there. How much money do they think this game makes? You know, it doesn't make, like, when you start seeing video game numbers, there's some video games out there that do huge numbers. This is not one of them. Okay. Madden is not one of them. I'm not saying that they don't make money. They do okay, but they're not anywhere close to the top video games. And it's not, I don't know. I'm no legal expert, but if you approach someone to do a deal and it's not up to them to go through the agent. It's up to the player, right? I mean, if someone approaches you, like that's between the player and who's representing them. I just think it's stupid. I think that, like, what they first proposed to give all of the players is incredible. That's a lot of guys. I mean, there's a ton of players in college football. If you want to have the players represented in the game, like, that's kind of the number where it has to be for things to make sense. And schools want to get involved in licensing and the players. It's just a shit show that I hate hearing about. Do you want people playing a game, getting college football out to more people, getting more people interested in what the sport is? Or do you want to chop it up, piece it up, and just like bog the thing down with deals and agreements and lawsuits to where it never gets made. It's the epitome of the United States right now. It's a quagmire of shit. Everything is just, it sucks. You can't do anything. It's stupid. I hate it. It pisses me off. I don't think we deserve it.
I hope we get it though.
I do too. I'm just not hopeful.
I think it'll end up all working out. I do wonder, you got all these players and those are big time schools, right? Bama, Ohio State, Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of these players even know that the Brandr Group exists and has their group licensing rights?
They probably none of them.
Right.
And we saw this like unofficially whenever all of this stuff came out. Like, I don't think I saw one player say, I want my money. I saw everyone saying, give me the $500. I can't wait for the game.
Right.
Right. Like if you polled college football, does someone ever even think to ask the players what they would like to do?
Of course not.
It's just I hate it.
And that's the thing and I was reading a couple articles on this. It's like the Brandr Group's whole thing is, oh, no. This lawsuit's for the players because we would get them a better deal. And that may be the case, but don't make it sound like, hey, you're about the players.
A better deal.
Yeah. It's about getting your cut. That's what this is. I mean, this is about business. Now I understand the frustration of the Brandr Group, right? Hey, we've got these contracts for group licensing with these schools. Do these contracts they don't matter?
Yeah, in my opinion, no, they don't matter.
So I get their frustration.
If you want the game to happen, they can't matter.
Yeah, we just want the game. Let's not make it so complicated. Just let it happen, people. But you're right, Ted. Everyone wants their piece, man. And that's where the NIL piece of things, it gets really complicated when you start talking about what deals universities have and athletic departments have when it comes to their sponsorships, their partnerships, the contracts they have in place, and then the players trying to do their thing where they're really not aware of much of any of that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they say, hey, no. The school says, you can't do that. And they go, wait. I thought I was in control of my name, image, and likeness. And that's where the school goes, well, kind of. You see, when you sign this, it means you can't do that.
So, if I was EA Sports, I would kind of rethink things. I would say, we're making the game. Okay. You can pay us and we'll put you in the game, or you're not going to be in the game for schools. All right. We're going to put who wants to be in the game. We're going to put them in the game. If you want to be a part of it, if you want people to see your brand and you want people to play with Oklahoma every day and go in there and see that branding all the time and see that stadium and see all of the things that you have, you can pay us. You pay us and we'll let you be in the game. If you don't want to pay us, you're not in it. We'll move on without you. And you start going about it that way, I think things change really quickly.
We want $1 and we will put your team and your players in the game. $1. That's all we want. As opposed to them having to divvy up all these different things and work through all the licensing. That would be, I can't imagine the schools would be very happy getting that phone call, but I love where your head's at. Like, hey, this is getting ridiculous. It's getting too complicated. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I remember, you're too young for this. I think it was called like RBI Baseball on original Nintendo. It's just the worst baseball game you could ever imagine, like as far as graphics and everything. But all of the team names are like loosely close to what the Major League Baseball team is. And like the top players, like you could like figure it out. It's far enough away to where they can claim it's not, but it's close enough to where you could figure out who you're playing with. You can almost figure out who you're playing with by like their body size and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's like at some point you just do that, you know.
The Oklahoma Wagons.
Exactly. The Oklahoma
Wagons.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And you can either pay us to be in the game and we'll have all of your stuff, we'll have the perfect color for your team, or you're going to be the Red Wagons.
I would love to be on the creative team for that. Like if that was the route they went, hey, you're playing with the Oklahoma Wagons. This is your quarterback, Daniel Aloha. You know, like that would be so much fun to be able to go through each roster and come up with a funny, like, hey, connect the dot name for each person.
Oh, that's so funny. The names of the teams would be better than the original. That's
the
so
Alabama
funny.
Elephants.
The Elephants. That's great.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I think it's gonna get worked out. It'll be fine. But it is getting to I knew it was going to get complicated, but it just keeps getting more and more annoying. And we all just want the game.
Yep.
Last thing. Do you see this story about this quarterback that's headed to Ole Miss?
I think I saw the headline and just kind of skimmed over it.
So Austin Simmons, he was committed in Florida's class of 2025. He has reclassified to the class of 2023, so 2 classes, and is enrolling at Ole Miss enrolling now. And I guess this guy got a big brain on him. He was a homeschooled kid, has a 5.34 GPA. How that is determined, I've got no idea, but he can't be stupid, right? Sounds like a smart kid, but have we gone too far with the, hey, you're a quarterback, you need to get on campus early? Like this kid is 17 years old and he's reclassifying 2 classes to get to Ole Miss, who, by the way, has a loaded quarterback room from what I've been able to gather. Are we doing too much, man?
Yeah.
You've been his last 2 years of high school.
Yeah. That is the age thing is an interesting matchup there.
He seems old. He must have been held back I'm not going to pretend I have a ton of knowledge of how homeschooling works.
Right.
But clearly an older guy to be going into his junior year of high school at 17 already. But that's also something, like more and more people are holding their kids back, right? Mm-hmm. Holding their kids back thinking, hey, this could help them. They can be more physically and emotionally mature. Maybe it leads to a college scholarship. Like that's a very real conversation that a lot of parents have, including my wife and I have had that conversation. Mm-hmm. Our son just turned 2. He's a June birthday. Do we want him to be old or do we want him to be super young for his grade?
Yeah, that's how my son's August birthday. And not even thinking about sports, everyone told us that with boys, it's good to do it anyways, I guess. But what do you say don't just say to a kid, pump the brakes?
That's what I'm saying. Like Lane Kiffin, you've got all these guys in your quarterback room, right? What he's got now, Spencer Sanders is as old as you and I, but he's got Spencer Sanders, Jackson Dart, and the Walker Howard kid. Remember, he's at Ole Miss. You need this kid to skip his last 2 years of high school. And I guess he's going to play baseball at Ole Miss too. So the kid must be a hell of an athlete.
Yeah.
But with the guys you've got, you need him in as a 17-year-old 2 years early. I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. Now, clearly he thinks he's making the best decision for himself or else he wouldn't do it. But geez.
I guess here's the thing that I don't know is like, so if you're homeschooled, you play on isn't there like a homeschool in the area team that's put together? Isn't that how that works?
That's how it worked when we would play basketball against a homeschool team here in Oklahoma City. They're called like the Oklahoma City Storm or something like that.
So can you either do that or you can find like a team that's closest to you to play with? Or
Yeah, I don't know. Remember there's the defensive lineman that OU's recruiting is a homeschooled guy, right?
oh, I don't know. What one? Stone?
No, not Stone. The other he's oh gosh.
Nigel
Oh
Smith?
no.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say, like as a coach, I would typically say, hey, take at least another year to develop. You'll get
Okoye.
more. Danny Okoye. Okay.
God, I could not remember his name.
You'll get way more individual work and one-on-one work, reps, everything. If you stay in high school at least another year, develop, because if you come here, let's be realistic. You're going to be like fourth on the depth chart and throwing scout team. I mean, but they're not realistic with recruits, right?
Yeah,
we think you could start.
You're 17 years old and you're in college.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not going to pretend, hey, there aren't ways to work around the laws. I'm not going to pretend that, but you think the seniors, the 22-year-olds want to hang out with the 17-year-old? I just don't. And once again, it's his decision, his family's decision. You've got to assume they're making it because they think that is what is best for him. Right. And I get that, but man, it feels like a little much.
You know, on the other side of things, if he's that smart, there may be a piece of it. It's like this kid is bored with everything.
Right.
Like he needs a challenge. Like he needs some more stimulation. Like it's time. Like there's some of that too.
I thought of that. I was like, maybe he's a, hyper intelligent guy, a two-sport athlete at the 5.34 GPA. I mean, like that, it's an impressive young guy, right? There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But if I've got a hyper intelligent guy, I send him to Ole Miss. I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying, like, if it was Stanford, as far as I know, Mississippi is not does not have some tremendous reputation of being a place where just you send geniuses. That I could be wrong. I'm not familiar with Ole Miss's academic requirements, but I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
And there's also a part of it. It's like Lane Kiffin is not like, he probably ranks out of 130 Division I coaches, head coaches. He's probably triple digits as far as like who you would consider an intellectual type of coach, right? He just doesn't put off that type of vibe. So you got a dual sport athlete here that's, been held back multiple years, maybe. Good baseball player, top quarterback. There's also a part of me that thinks like the person issuing the homeschool test was really smart too,
Yeah.
Like that 5.34. What are we talking about here?
I don't know how that testing works, but hey, Austin Simmons, it's a name to remember, right? This is a bit unusual. We've seen guys reclassify one class, but two classes and then enroll right away. We'll be keeping tabs on him. That's for sure. It's an interesting story.
Yeah. I'm getting like travel ball parent vibes. It's like, hey, if we homeschool him, he can play baseball 23 hours a day and spend an hour on schoolwork, you know? If he's homeschooled, we can go to Arizona and California and hit all of the travel ball tournaments all over the world.
That's literally my nightmare as a parent. The first dad that comes up to me with that, like, hey, we've got this travel ball team. Yeah, your son, like, I'm saying, hey man, that my son's gonna be a kid. He's gonna be a kid. I'm sorry, we're not traveling every weekend of the summer to go play some baseball. It ain't happening.
Don't know if you guys are interested or not, but there's this 5-week tournament down in Brazil that we're putting a group together to go down. There's supposed to be a lot of really good competition there. Yeah, no thanks.
You sound like you're coming from a little bit of experience here, buddy.
Yeah, we're a travel baseball family, and it's strict 20-minute travel time. That's if it's within 20 minutes, we'll do it. Outside of that, no.
Love that. Totally gonna